He plays
Doesn't
a
matter.
particular role.
Plays a guy made bank. Yeah.
How much bank? Really
A
questionable.
lot.
Yeah.
That guy makes a lot, man.
All right, what is up, folks? We are live. This is the Sidekick Show. I have Rob in the house. I have Stu in the house, and I am John here. We're talking tonight. We're talking Richard Donner tribute. So, if you want to go take a trip down memory lane and pay tribute to this pioneer of the film industry, these guys are going to educate me in a lot of the historical aspects, and I'm definitely going to talk a lot about Lethal Weapon 4. But we'll get to that later. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm gonna roll the intro to give everyone else a couple seconds.
I was wondering what was happening.
Yeah, I don't know if it works. All right. So welcome to the Sidekick Show. Give us a second, folks. All right, that was our quick partial intro. I'm playing with things on the net. So
wow,
things are happening.
So much more. Wow! Wow!
That's so fancy, Jonathan.
It's fancy. So if you just tuned in, if you missed the earlier portion of the show, we're talking Richard Donner. We're going to be talking about a lot of old school movies, a lot of hits, a lot of movies that maybe you didn't know he produced and was behind. And we're going to talk about his impact going forward in cinema and all that kind of stuff.
I'm sorry, cinnamon?
In cinnamons. Cinema.
His impact on cinnamon was very spicy.
Cinnamon, yes. What up? I see Lewis in the chat. I see Scott in the chat. I see Asian Avatar. What's up? I see Fraser. What's up, Fraser? Feels like it's been a minute. So let's hit him with a little bit of new releases and a little bit of news. The only thing I really want to talk about this week coming in at the store is we are going to get the pre-release product for the brand new Magic set, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, which is the D&D based Magic set. So we're pretty excited that that's finally going to hit. This is your chance to kind of see things early. We will have the pre-release packs ready, and those are usually a 6-pack, little kind of like take-home packet. Normally we run a tournament. Unfortunately, I don't believe that's going to be happening this week, even though there is a extended full opening on the 16th, but there's other things we want to iron out. We want to make sure it's safe for everybody. So that is most likely going to be a take-home pre-release. And we also are going to have set boosters early. So if you want to dive into this set, this weekend is the time to do it. So I'm pretty excited. Look, Gordon's already Scott. Oh, look at I called Scott Gordon this time. It's crazy. Scott's in the chat and he says he wants a box of that Magic. So thank you very much, guys. So Rob, let's hit it with the news, and then you guys are going to go a deep dive into some Richard Donner action.
We are. Hey, John. Hey, Stu. Thanks for showing up today, buddy. Stewart.
He froze.
Can Stewart not hear me?
Yes. I was reading Gordon's remarks, like literally froze. I'm like, true, I did freeze. Not like Black Panther. All right. Not like Black Panther, but yeah.
Hey guys. So listen, we yesterday on the Heroes World podcast, we talked. We did a review of Black Widow. If you haven't checked out that review, definitely go back and check it out. But we got some breaking news in terms of its box office crushing this weekend, $215 million worldwide. Now I'm going to give you a breakdown of what that translated. First of all, it was 78 million in international theaters. 80 million in U.S. ticket sales, was generally actually Canada is usually lumped into U.S. ticket sales, not the international market. But here's where I think is an interesting number, and I should have find out what you guys think. $60 million this weekend on Disney Plus revenue, all in U.S. dollars. So that's huge. Now, is this a sign of things to come? Do we think that Disney / Marvel may want to start releasing some more of their movies day and date on Disney Plus, knowing that you've pulled in $60 million?
Didn't the Variety just mention that Disney Plus is jacking up the rates for next year? Did you read that article?
Well, I did read that. They are jacking the rate now for people in the U.S. We already had our rate increase. The U.S., they are increasing their bundle. In the U.S., they have a bundle that throws in ESPN, National Geographic, and everything else. We don't have that in Canada. So yes, that bundle is increasing. I think the basic Disney Plus subscription, if you just subscribe to D Plus, it's not going to increase. But yeah, you're right. It's actually going up pretty. I think it's about, I want to say it's almost like $20 or $30 a year, Which is what it's going up here. I mean, I just re-upped in November and it was $90, and I think it's up to $120 this coming year. So it's a fairly significant jump. But yeah, I mean, that all being said, $60 million on Disney Plus opening weekend. What do you guys think? Is that the future, or is that just like it's because it's a Marvel movie?
Marvel movie.
I think it's impressive.
Because you look at Cruella, you look at the other offerings that happened. This is just the machine, and people are starved and wanting to see Black Widow, and that's all she wrote. So I can't imagine. Although Disney probably is getting more of that sweet money and doesn't have to pay out to the theaters, but no way is it reaching $1 billion that it originally had kind of envisioned. So,
but do you think that Black Widow had the legs to make $1 billion?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. And this is nothing against Shang-Chi coming out of the Eternals. I think the next Disney movie is going to make $1 billion is going to be Spider-Man No Way Home. I don't know if Shang-Chi and Eternals will get there.
Without COVID happening, it would have made it. I just think it just would have had the legs because Scarlett Johansson this last one. There is some pomp and circumstance behind it. So, we got robbed of that opportunity. But in my mind, I envisioned that was the $1 billion mark. It definitely would have made more than Wonder Woman.
The first movie or the second one?
84, yeah.
Well, that's true. Yes, but in all fairness, like shit in a bag could make more money if I was released that in theaters. Moving on, we've been talking, we've been huge fans of James Tynion IV. Something is Killing the Children. From Boom Studios. Now, we've talked about that book on this podcast. We talked about it on the Heroes World, the main show. We have been pushing this book because it's an awesome book. But I got some good news. The comic has been optioned by Trevor Macy and Mike Flanagan. If those names kind of sound familiar to you, they're the creative minds behind Netflix's series, The Haunting of Hill House and Bly Manor, as well as Stephen King's Dr. Death. They are going to be show running Something is Killing the Children for Netflix. So that's actually really big news that, yes, that property is going that way, especially with Mike Flanagan. Here's my hope. I hope Mike Flanagan actually directs all of those episodes because he directed all of The Haunting of Hill House, and that was phenomenal. He directed nothing of Bly Manor, and that was shit. So I'm really hopeful that he's in the director's chair for Something is Killing the Children. But the one thing that's interesting is that they're running a pilot. They're actually not making a full series order. They're just running a pilot at first for Netflix. So is this good news? I mean, are we excited for Something is Killing the Children? Are we surprised it landed on Netflix, guys?
No, I think why not Netflix? They scooped up a lot of the other stuff. So, and Netflix needs it now to catch up, I think.
It's a hard thing, Netflix, because there were quotes before saying that Netflix wanted to be the new HBO and HBO wanted to be the new Netflix, and things teeter back and forth. Frankly, if it's a limited series, I'd have more confidence in Netflix. Anything that seems to be 5 or 6 seasons, they seem to be just culling off shows left, right, and center. So, if it's a limited series, I'm all about it. But if this is a la the Jupiter Legacy, then I have no faith, and this is gone.
I know. To be honest with you, I
cancel.
Sense8. Like, how many Netflix shows have they just basically the algorithm doesn't work and it's basically dead? Like, if you saw the cancellations on Netflix recently, a dozen shows just got the axe. And you would think on Netflix it'd be a perfect place. Gone are the days where you'd have a show going, hey, save our show on Netflix, whether it was Lucifer and then last was that terrible show, the airplane show. What was that?
Manifest.
It was like hot on Netflix and everyone's watching it. And they're like, maybe Netflix will save it. No, Netflix isn't going to save you. It's over.
I really thought that property would have been best served at Amazon, considering the other type of properties that they have with The Boys and Invincible, but such is life. But we are speaking about Netflix. We're going to segue to that later this month. One of John's favorite action heroes, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, are having a relaunch titled Revelation on Netflix. Well, another 80s cartoon property is also getting a relaunch, Silverhawks. I don't know if you guys remember this from the 80s or not, but these were like they did the thing with the mask and it always slid down. That was really cool. Now, this is kind of tied to Thundercats cartoon as well, which itself is getting a CGI movie by Godzilla Kong director Adam Wingard. But Silverhawks has been optioned, has been purchased. It is ready to go. No idea where it will be distributed out of, whether it's a TV series like He-Man or whatever. But Silverhawks looks to be coming back to the screen. Are you guys happy?
What an obscure property to get kind of resurrected.
No, I don't think so, man.
Here's the thing.
I've been to the toy shows. You don't really see these guys pop up. They were starting to towards the end, right before the pandemic. But yeah, I guess yeah. Go ahead, Stu.
Let's be honest. All those shows in the 80s were all about selling toys anyways. Had nothing to do with plot. Transformers was nothing. It was a weird amalgamation of plot lines thrown together to sell a Bumblebee Transformer, and it worked on me. I wanted a Bumblebee. but other than that, all the shows were just hot garbage. None of those 80s shows were good. And really, if they kind of rearrange it and maybe get some of the proper writing and treatment of today's, storylines and plots, just like when they redid Battlestar Galactica, I'm all about it. Get a property that's kind of there, shiny up, make it look good, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm down for it. I was a big fan of that cartoon as a kid, but sometimes what you're a fan of as a kid, you realize not so much as an adult. Case in point, Knight Rider. Great show as a kid. Watch it as an adult. What a pant load. And finally,
just like the many movies we're going to talk about momentarily.
Finally, I know that some who watch this show with John and I are huge fans of Howard the Duck. I'm assuming that Michelle's not online, otherwise her head would be exploding right now. Well, the original movie star Leah Thompson actually tweeted out that she would love to direct a Howard the Duck reboot for Marvel. So, I mean, I don't know if it'll happen, but listen, Howard the Duck's getting lots of love with that What If trailer. So you never know. Listen, in a day and age where we're getting Shang-Chi, the Eternals, and potentially 3 Spider-Men coming together this Christmas, Howard the Duck reboot with Leah Thompson as director would just not surprise me.
Do it.
Ooh,
100%.
No. The answer is no on all accounts. Negarito. So we're good. And yeah, carry on. Let's keep on.
All right. Well, you know what? That's all I got for news, guys. That's it.
Yeah,
that's all I got for news.
Barbarian? You got to be kidding me, man. When was the last time you watched an episode? Let's go back, rewatch one episode, and tell me it's still good.
All of them
of what? Silverhawks?
Go back and watch.
No, Thundar the Barbarian.
No, even any 80s or earlier cartoon shows. It wasn't until like maybe Batman the Animated Series. Maybe there's a couple other gems before that really stand the test of time.
The gem is Tintin and Blake and Mortimer, and fight me on that. Anything Parlez-vous Français is good. It was solid. Everything else is just hot trash because they weren't selling toys. It was a comic strip they converted to a TV show. So even Rupert the Bear had its merits.
Yeah, I tried to do a rewatch of the entire He-Man early episodes, and it's pretty rough. It's totally, if you watch The Toys That Made Us, it was totally engineered to sell toys, and that's exactly what you're watching.
Honestly, if you can get your hands on Blake and Mortimer, that show was ahead of its time. It's incredible. So that's it. Carry on.
Well,
we'll pull up a picture
about
of Blake
ahead
and
of its
Mortimer
time. Speaking about ahead of its time, we are talking about Donner. And that was an interesting segue. I'm butchering this, but this is the guy who brought Superman to life on the big screen, and many would say was ahead of his time, bringing the big blue Boy Scout to life. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today as Stu, John, and I kind of reminisce about the career of Richard Donner. You might be thinking, well, what the hell? Who cares, man? This guy had a much bigger impact on the cinema of the 80s and 90s and even forward than you may realize. So we wanted to talk about everything with him. And listen, we've talked about his contribution, what Superman did for cinema and for movies in many, many podcasts. So you could definitely go back and check all those out. But I will say, just to quickly summarize, Kevin Feige has made it very clear that Superman the movie is what he calls the quintessential, the perfect comic book adaptation movie. So much so that he ensures that before every production of a new Marvel MCU movie, that the crew, the actors, everybody sits down and they watch Superman the movie. That says a lot. This is a movie where everything else, that's the benchmark. Superman the movie is the benchmark of everything that's come after that. And you don't you don't get the type of movies spearheaded by Kevin Feige without Richard Donner Superman, who, fun fact, Kevin Feige and Jeff Johns were both kind of interns for the Donners way back in like the early 90s, I believe. So, Jeff Johns still had a lot of ties to Richard Donner. They both co-wrote a story in Superman 1000 that came out 2 years ago. Richard Donner did a couple of issues of Action Comics with Jeff Johns back in his run. So he was still tied to the character, was a big fan of the character. He kind of got screwed over, but we can go into that another day. But yeah, this is Richard Donner. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is the first director that I ever knew his name. And I think it's because I watched that movie, Superman movie, a million times as a very young kid. I knew his name before I knew his face. People always talk about directors. Oh, they always knew the director or the stars. This is that movie for me. Richard Donner was the guy that I knew based on his directing of Superman, and was blown away when I had realized that he directed Lethal Weapon, which is another one of my favorite movies, as John can attest to. So
yeah, he considered a pretty much a safe bet whenever you were going to make an action movie, I think, especially later in his career. So those are some great thoughts. I question the million watches of Superman, Rob, but I guess it could have been possible. 365 days, one every day. How old are you now? But anyways, does Stu want to like have a little blurb before we just kind of like unstructured chat? Or are we going to name our favorite Donner movies? Or,
keep it rolling. We got lots to do. I don't think people recognize that Rob and myself were peppering John with thousands of photos in between, and John's like, "What the heck is going on? We'll talk about all this." I'm like, "We're gonna try." So let's go through and have some fun facts as well. So I'll spatter them in as Rob goes on.
Okay. So in the chat, do we want to maybe hear what people's favorite movies are? So in the chat, if you're watching, thank you again so much for tuning in. We love having you here. It's really fun. So drop in the comments what your favorite Donner movie is, and that'll kind of get the chat flowing. Should we go back to Rob? Is Superman your all-time favorite Donner movie, or do you have another one kind of in the stable that maybe Superman is the one that you grew up with and watched the most? Is there another one that you consider your favorite? Is it the Lethal Weapon series?
Yeah, I would probably say for me, like Superman is obviously the quintessential superhero movie, which everything was based on. But I would say that quadrilogy of movies is phenomenal. That you often get movies when you get a sequel or even the third movie, they dip in quality. It's not always, you don't always get the same. The Lethal Weapon movies, admittedly, and I said this before in my arguments of Lethal Weapon 2 before when we did our 80s action bracket, is that I find Lethal Weapon to be the best one. Lethal Weapon 2 is up there just a tick below. But they didn't repeat. They wasn't wash, rinse, recycle, repeat for the other movies. They added more elements to it. You added Joe Pesci. You added Rene Russo. You added Chris Rock, Jet Li. Like, you added more and you kept the dynamic, because what really made the Lethal Weapon movie was the dynamic of those two guys. The buddy cop film that, to be honest with you, I would argue that Richard Donner, even though it was written by Shane Black, I think he reinvented the idea of it. He reinvented it. He put a fresh coat of paint on it. The last buddy cop movie prior to this would have been 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte, which relied really kind of heavily on movies and cop movies from more of the 60s and 70s. So yeah, I would say Richard Donner. You don't get Rush Hour. You don't get Beverly Bad Boys. You don't get a lot of those duo cop movies without Lethal Weapon, without Richard Donner.
Sorry, we had a question for you, Rob. Filmography of Richard Donner or Walter Hill. Who do you think has the better?
We'll go back to it. We got to focus on this. We haven't even got through the list of movies, TV shows.
Okay, so
executive producing credits. Like, there's a million things.
We'll start throwing some. Stu, Scrooged or Goonies? What do you like better?
Goonies. It's the greatest movie ever filmed, and it takes place in Portland. You name me another movie in Portland that is more represented than the Goonies. And all you Mr. Hollum Opus heads, come at me, because the Goonies is the best movie that takes place in Portland. I love Mr. Hollum's Opus. It's a feel-good movie of the year, but it ain't no Goonies. So let's keep on going.
Yeah. Shout out to Scrooge. Scrooge is a fantastic movie as well.
Scrooge is an amazing movie. And Sarah,
I watched it in
with Rene Russo. She's good in it. So don't throw shade at Rene Russo. Come on, slow down.
Shout out to Scrooge because I watched it in school. I don't know what teacher thought it was a good idea. It was a Christmas movie, I think, or maybe it was the time looping thing. I don't know why, but sometimes those teachers growing up really come through. Lady Hawk, Rob, how many times have you seen Lady Hawk?
Oh, a few times. It probably wasn't my jam back then. I mean, it had Matthew Broderick, so I was like riding high in a Ferris Bueller's Day Off kick, but it wasn't really my jam. I think we can go back to 1960. Richard Donner broke his into television through a lot of these shows. What's that?
Great start.
Yeah. And a lot of ones that you might not like. You like, well, what the heck is that you already never heard? I mean, his first episode was the Zane Grey Theater. He then jumps into Wanted, Dead or Alive, and he directs 6 episodes of that series. Route 66. Many people on here are like, I have no clue what you're talking about, but your parents would. The Rifleman.
And he directed probably the most recognizable episode on TV with one of the greatest Canadians of all time in a little TV show called The Twilight Zone. That's episode right. Where he directed, which was Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, is the Gremlin episode. And most people, it's been spoofed on The Simpsons and 1,000 times over, but he was the guy that filmed that episode and was the director of it. And to Rob mentioning, John, I think I sent you 1,000 photos of his TV shows where it basically, he had kind of did everything from Westerns to action, to Perry Mason, to science fiction. He essentially kind of, Steve McQueen, Wanted, Dead or Alive. He kind of went the gambit of doing all these different shows. So when you could see he has a sensibility of his movies, he can kind of weave in all these different kind of sequences because he had that experience of doing, whether like again a legal drama or he kind of did everything else. The Man from Uncle,
he did
right?
The Man from Uncle, 4 episodes there, dude. He did Gilligan's Island. Right, like you might be thinking, well, what the hell is Wanted, Dead or Alive? Okay, fair enough, but you are going to be hard pressed to not know Gilligan's Island as a pop cultural reference. John just had Perry Mason up there, the television show. One of my personal favorites, that a TV show that I watched, obviously because I wasn't around in the 1960s, but 100 times on repeat. I loved it. Was Get Smart. Right, with Don Adams. I mean, he directed 2 episodes of that. The Fugitive, not the movie, but the TV show on which it was based on, with Richard Kimball. Directed a couple episodes about there. He was cutting his teeth on a lot of these movies that you actually realize, like The Man from Uncle, as John shows, were then made into movies. I mean, The Man from Uncle was made into a movie directed by Guy Ritchie, starring Henry Cavill.
Who was in that movie? Who's in that movie?
I don't remember the other guy. I think he's a fan of barbecue. It might be Armie Hammer, but we don't mention him anymore.
There's a guy that you loved at one point, and I think you sent your resume in to be part of his entourage.
Mr. Hammer. And it's not M. He cut his. What about the Wild Wild West? I mean, this is not the the Will Smith movie, but of TV shows back in the 60s as well. So he was really blazing through a whole bunch of television shows, episodic television shows. If you were to go through his IMDb, you would be surprised. This guy probably worked, I would say, almost every day in the 60s on different television properties. The 70s were really no different with Kojak. At the time, was like one of the highest rated television series. He directed 3 episodes there. And then his last TV show that he directed in 75 was called Bronx. Never heard of it. Doesn't matter. Why is it important? Because that year, the year right after, he directs The Omen, which, as your first foray into now, the big screen, you're jumping into The Omen. That's huge. Did you guys ever watch The Omen?
Of course. It's required viewing.
Totally not.
It's a terrifying movie. I mean, John, do you know what the premise is or no?
It's about a kid in a cemetery staring you down.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Richard Donner.
What year is this movie? Before we start,
what he had to compete with The Omen was that he started basically. This is the template of modern horror films, And this is what he created. This is what he started. And remember, at this certain time, he's also competing against the Poltergeist, where a head is spinning around 360. What he does is just as terrifying, whereas, spoiler, a decapitation of glass, but still, nonetheless, it was horrifying enough to basically go, oh, he can do something different that not necessarily something he did on TV. And again, this is without spoiling the Omen, but there are a lot of pieces of horror that now to this day people still use from what that film.
The way he shot the movies, the way his camera style was shot, as Stu said, a lot of movies have taken and cribbed off of his style. I actually wish I had sent this to John, but the next movie he directs after The Omen is obviously Superman. So we talked, but there's one scene in Superman, and if you're familiar with this, it's all over Twitter. You could actually go online and find it as well. But there's a scene where Perry White comes out into the newsroom and is talking to Lois, and everybody's kind of milling in the back, and she's now, the idea is that she's on her way up to the roof to do the interview, to get the helicopter to do the interview with Air Force One with the president who's landing. It's a 2.5-minute scene that was all one shot. It was choreographed like a play. If you watch it now, you might not realize how much work was put into filming that one back in 1976. 78 when it comes out. That blew the doors off of everything, because you have hundreds of actors in the background doing things, having conversations while the camera is following your two leads through the newsroom. So much so that one could argue Aaron Sorkin cribbed that idea and popularized it in modern day television with The West Wing, the walking, talking shot through the corridors. I would really recommend that somebody can go online and find the Superman scene. Again, it's on Twitter, everything else. It's phenomenal. It's about 2.5 minutes. And watching it with the information I provided you now, it opens your eyes to just how phenomenal of a director he was just with that one scene. And we don't get The West Wing. We don't get Aaron Sorkin's walking, talking style without that. I would make that argument any day of the week. We jump into Superman 2. He's uncredited. Obviously, we can go into that with Richard Lester. We won't. He was fired by the Silicons, but he does have the Richard Donner director's cut out there. You could go check that out. And then he gets into The Toy, which is a very interesting movie.
Glossed over all the Superman 2. Like, really, the Herculean task that he had to do for Superman 2, you're just going to gloss over that.
Well, no, but we had talked about it in previous episodes.
I think it's important to bring it up again, because just think about the amount of work and the fact that his vision wasn't even complete till 2006. That's right. How long it took for him to get his true vision across. And the fact that people don't realize that those movies were filmed back to back. It was basically filmed all at once. And he had a falling out with basically two of the other, I think the producers.
The Silicons who owned the rights to be able to, the producers of the project. So what happened was, as Stu said, Donner was doing it back to back, which had really, I don't think, Stu, maybe I'm wrong, it had never been done before.
Never been done before. That's
filming
why
movies.
It's big. Yeah. Lord of the Rings, basically, again, just we'll do it all at once.
Yeah. So they filmed 1 and 2 back to back.
They filmed, all the scenes with everything was simultaneous. They were ready for basically put them both at the same time.
Right. And so you then realize when you watch Superman 2, you can tell there's a stylistic difference between what Donner was doing, what Richard Lester had done. Richard Lester was more of a comedic director at the time. So he gets into the argument with the Silicons. He actually gets fired. I feel like he was 80% of the way through. Three quarters
done. This was basically the Snyder cut. Like, this preempts all this, where people are like, I want the Donner cut. Why can't I get the Donner cut? And this is the OG.
He didn't have Twitter back then, though, so
that's
mount a marketing campaign.
Pretty much it. Yeah.
But yeah, it was taken from him. And what's interesting is that if you actually go and look at the Donner cut now, Superman 2, you realize the end of Superman 1, they actually cut that from number 2, because that was supposed to be the ending of number 2. They shoehorned in a lot of what is in the Donner cut. His vision of number 2 was shoehorned into the completion of 1 because, again, they were filming everything as one big giant movie to cut it. So one would release 1 year and the next the following Christmas. So 2 years of Superman. And it does definitely change what your perception or your memory of the Superman 2 that we all grew up with. I love that movie, but then watching the Donner cut, I'm like, holy crap, right? And now, admittedly, some of it's rough. They have a lot of screen test footage that's put in there. The scene where Superman kind of comes out to Lois, stumbling over the bare skin, that's not in the Donner cut. Like, there's a much more intense reveal of how she figures out he's Superman. I would definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't. You owe it to yourself as a Superman fan, but as a Donner fan as well.
Because again, it's a complete. They let this guy reshoot an entire brand new movie, and it is night and day different. And they had to wait till the Donner estate and the Donner production company had to wait 2 years after Brando had passed away, so they could basically recut all the stuff they could from all the old video footage they could to basically restore to what Richard felt was the most satisfactory ending to the movie that he was putting together with all the stuff that he shot with Brando. Yeah. So again, it was a complete gong show, top to bottom. It speaks again as to him patiently waiting till he had the time, and when he did, the Donner cut came up, and it was a big deal. And I don't even recognize the first cut anymore. All I only know is the Donner cut.
Sweet. Yeah, that's awesome. Again, we talked a little bit about the toy, which is a very interesting kind of a niche movie. I don't think it was well received. It's it's kind of bizarre. John mentions Letty Hawk with Matthew Broderick, Michelle Pfeiffer, and
Rutger Hauer.
Rutger Hauer, thank you, who just came off of Blade Runner. It's a very interesting movie. I haven't seen it in years and years and years. I probably should go back and check it out, but I remember just kind of being like, no, okay, perfect.
No, you don't. Nope, you're fine.
I'm good. All right.
No, go back.
Rose-colored glasses, my friend.
Just keep on driving.
So then, Brando.
Due east. Just keep due west.
Due east. So then he does a slingshot around the moon and comes back with one of the biggest movies of the 80s, and that is The Goonies. Now, I'm going to make a statement here, and maybe you might think I'm crazy or not, but I'm going to argue this. At the time of the Da Vinci Code, the movie, the book with Dan Brown, there was a little movie from John's friend, Nicolas Cage, that came out, and it was called National Treasure. And I'm going to tell you right now, National Treasure owes more to the Goonies than it does to the Da Vinci Code. I would argue that Sean Astin's character, he grows up to become Nicolas Cage in National Treasure, because if you watch these two movies, it's practically a sequel that was made 25 years later. Yes, no.
Is this the same thing where Chris Hardwick says that James Bond is a Time Lord because he's just going to change it every time he dies? He just morphs into a new guy. Because that's also the other theory that I believe, that it makes sense that James Bond will be a Time Lord because he just body swap, like it's the same James Bond every film. He just when he dies, he regenerates to the new face of Bond, and then he keeps on going, which I actually think is a better canon. But carry on.
That's a way better storyline altogether. I love that. He doesn't know he's a Time Lord because he's got the fog watch.
100%. You don't know. Yeah, he doesn't know.
But I really honestly stand by this. If you watch National Treasure, what ties it to the Da Vinci Code is because they're talking a lot about Masons and the forefathers, which was kind of tied into that. However, the actual hunting of the treasure, it is completely cribbed from what Donner did with One-Eye Willy and the Goonies squad going down. I mean, I think Scott mentioned Thanos. Yeah, this is his first movie, Josh Brolin's first movie, which is really funny. He's got the 80s headband, and he's got, he's using the vice grips, and he's working out and stuff like that. It's hilarious. Produced by Steven Spielberg. You don't get better. Like, if you're thinking about 80s kids movies or 80s movies, aside from the action stuff, it's The Goonies is near the top of that list. John, are you a Goonie?
It's been some time since I saw it. So I wanted to try and watch that before we went into this day.
Oh boy, John, but you'll see which movie. I'm going to save you. I want to ask Pat, because clearly you're drowning. I want to ask the chat, when was the last time you yelled, "Hey, you guys"? Because I do that once a year.
Yes.
I will go to my friends and I will yell, "Hey, you guys," all the time. So I want to know when the last time you did that to your friends, because it is classic.
It is, and in fact, I actually tried to. I showed my son, and I said, "Hey, show your mom how to do the truffle shuffle." Now, just as a side note, the interesting thing, I can't remember the name of the actor who played, who did the truffle shuffle in that movie. Anyways, he's now an entertainment lawyer, but after a while, his acting career kind of just petered out. And he was still doing kind of some internship and helping the Donners. And he asked Dick, he said, "Hey, can you write me a recommendation, a letter? I want to get into university." And, and Rich was like, "Yeah, you know what? Just write down what you want me to say and I'll sign it." So the guy writes this heartfelt letter about being raised by a single mom and this and that and the struggles. Donner calls him and says, I'm not signing this. And the guy's like, "You're not going to sign it?" He goes, "No, I'm not only going to sign it. I'm paying for your entire college tuition." And he now is a huge entertainment lawyer out of Hollywood. And that was a really thanks to Richard Donner and his family, who covered his entire tuition costs, because the kid he had no money and his mom couldn't afford to send him to an Ivy League college. So a feel-good story with Richard Donner. But yeah, Stu's right. Hey, you guys, look at that. Stu.
This is what happens.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Who wanted to throw a $5 "Hey, you guys" at us. You don't have to do that, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, are we good with Goonies?
I think it speaks for itself. I think
Goonies. I feel like it could have its own separate podcast.
Even to this day, they were always talking about Goonies 2, and Richard Donner's name's gonna be on it. If there ever does come out Goonies 2, his name, his production company, there'll always be synergy to it. And that is one of his part of his legacy. But we got to continue on, because there's some sort of movie coming up that Rob may want to talk about, where there's two guys that get together, that work, that are police officers in some place where there's a beach.
One of them was too old for this shit. We're gonna go. The next movie we jump into is Lethal Weapon. And again, if you take a look at what he did in television, what Stu and I were kind of talking about, you go from the Twilight Zone to Gilligan's Island to The Man from U.N.C.L.E. It slingshots in its genres. You went from Superman to the Goonies, and now the next year after the Goonies, he's doing Lethal Weapon. That's a complete 180 from where he is with the Goonies. And so this redefined the action movie team up, the buddy cop team up of the 80s. There's a very good argument that these became the proto cop characters and archetypes for movies that came. You don't get Under Siege. You don't Out for Justice. You don't get Steven Seagal doing his hard ass.
You don't get
character.
21 Jump Street. You don't get Bad Boys. You don't get
Rush Hour.
Get, like a million of these Men in Black. You name the movies. Every one of these type of films that are basically a buddy cop, two people working together. This is essentially what that culmination of The Last Boy Scout. You could name a million of these movies. Miami Vice. Basically, every Point Break. Everything pretty much follows this Rush Hour. Follows this template of two different opposite attracting people coming together and working on a cause, especially if it's police officers. And fun fact, Rob and John, do you know who was originally attached to direct this movie but had to stop because he was busy filming another movie?
Pretty sure Rob's going to know that.
I feel like I talked about this a few months ago, and now I can't think of what it is or who it was. I don't know who.
Chat, you don't know? It was a famous man who directed a big blockbuster hit, 3 Men and a Baby.
Oh, Leonard Nimoy.
Was supposed to direct Lethal Weapon, and he couldn't because he was busy with another movie called 3 Men and a Baby. Unbelievable. Right. Hollywood, baby.
Could you imagine what Lethal Weapon movies would have been like if it was
Leonard
Nimoy, which is
great. They'd be great.
Which is really funny because Shane Black, who wrote Lethal Weapon, he had a really cool take on Lethal Weapon 2, and Donner kind of said, nope, we're not going that route, and Black kind of pulled his name from the script of Lethal Weapon 2. Apparently, now he's never released that script. Word on the street is it's one of the best scripts that had ever written from the Lethal Weapon movie.
Anyone could say that if you're not going to release it to the streets.
Because it was taking a huge detour. Like he was going to be killing off Riggs, like the Mel Gibson. It was going to be very, very dark and gritty. And even so, Richard Donner said, "Listen, it's an amazing script, but I saw a future of these characters that weren't going to align with how dark this movie was going to be."
Like the powerhouse that is Joel Silver, Shane Black at that point before it went, and then Richard Donner, like that's a really strong trifecta of just strong opinions and strong creative backgrounds. I'm surprised this movie even kind of fit together. Like you said before, Rob, they were very unique, and I think most of Shane Black's like scripts have been on the blacklist several times over. As for those who don't know, the blacklist is this list in Hollywood where there's kind of the hottest scripts that haven't been picked up by a studio, and there's kind of waiting there for the right opportunity. So, there's one of his other ones was Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and just no one just could figure out how to do it. So
he ended up directing it himself because he goes, nobody knows how to actually tell the story. So I'm just going to do it myself. Right. I could go on about Lethal Weapon all day long. It's a phenomenal,
before you
movie.
move on, this is where my time went. My time went to Lethal Weapon 4, which I rewatched right before this podcast.
Oh, did you really?
One of the most iconic action movies, I think, in my childhood. And I think he really, this is where I kind of like, you guys are talking about all these things that kind of come after and all these influences. He was here on the ground floor of the Asian kind of infusion, the Hong Kong action style, trying to get brought into Western cinema. He brings over Jet Li, who's not on this poster, which I do have a slight issue with, but whatever. And he brings on his martial arts choreographer, Corey Yuen, arguably one of the best Hong Kong action directors. And he really brought like something like you said, Lethal Weapon already has pioneered the buddy genre. This kind of pioneers, like I can see DNA from Fast and the Furious in this movie on the rewatch. They have all these crazy car action scenes. They were just using Grand Ams and Buicks. They didn't have hot exotic cars or anything, so they're like one step behind Fast and the Furious. And then you bring in Chris Rock, who's a comedian who and even earlier he brought in who plays Leo again?
Joe Pesci.
Joe Pesci, yeah. You kind of have these comedians coming in and kind of definitely 100% improving. I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong or not. But that is something that became a huge thing. And then, Judd Apatow comes along and all that kind of craziness. And then even you have Rene Russo, who got to play a female badass in these action movies where basically all the women were getting saved. So I just wanted to make sure we stop for a second on Lethal Weapon 4, which I think it's underrated. So if you go back and watch it again, I think you will actually have a lot of fun. I know Stu's making a face.
We're going to have to do the ratings again because again, Lethal Weapon 1 has a very special place in my heart. Lethal Weapon 2, Scars already said it, and I as well once every 4 weeks have to yell diplomatic immunity in any chat I'm in. When I'm losing an argument, I just yell in all caps diplomatic immunity, and that is my like Denny Crane from Boston Legal. Like that's my right. I'm done the conversation. I've lost. I'm just gonna yell diplomatic immunity. I'll put up the white flag. So there's some moments I don't remember Lethal Weapon 3 as much, but yeah, I do remember watching Lethal Weapon 4 in the movie theater.
I remember 4 very clearly, and I think I remember like Lethal Weapon 1 and 2. I might have saw when I was very young, and kind of never kind of went back. So I don't have the same kind of attachment as Rob does. But Lethal Weapon 4 definitely, and then during that period you have Rush Hour dropping Lethal Weapon 4, and then you have following it Replacement Killers, and this whole kind of like explosion of this style of genre. So I do thank him for doing that movie.
Well, and what's interesting is that you said he brings in comedians of Chris Rock and Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci was never known for comedy before Lethal Weapon 2. This is a guy who played a mob style character actor, right? Raging Bull. He was the buddy to Dustin Hoffman. Joe Pesci was a very serious actor who didn't really want to take a comedic turn. And it was Dick Donner that kind of was like, no, I think that you are right for this part and you could do something with it. And not only does he chew every scene that he's in, but it makes it now when you think of Lethal Weapon, you do think of Leo Getz. Whatever you want, Leo Getz. Like he took that character and it's ingrained in pop culture iconography when it comes to Lethal Weapon.
And that performance got him and Danny Glover a movie called Gone Fishing, written by the great J.J. Abrams. So that's all you need to know about that. J.J. Abrams wrote Gone Fishing, and then Joe Pesci and again, J.J.
Yeah,
You've done so many wrongs. You've done the ledger, as we said, Black Widow is just dripping of red, and it's all you. Lost on that ledger of red too.
I question why I've seen that movie. I've seen that movie.
Hey, if you're like an old guy that likes fishing, you like Gone Fishing. If you're an old curmudgeon guy, it's up in your wheelhouse.
It's so weird though. I definitely saw it when I was a kid, and I enjoyed it. And that and Grumpy Old Man. I question why I've seen those particular movies. It's really weird.
It was probably cheap, and that's why it was on TV all the time. That was pretty much it on channel 19 as a kid on Fox. You just were able to get 21 or whatever. It was always on Sunday, probably at 1:00 after cartoons. But yeah,
I'm really glad you enjoyed Lethal Weapon 4, John. I actually thought there was another movie that's coming up. I thought that you would have watched before instead. But after Lethal Weapon, we hit Scrooged. Bill Murray, a timeless Christmas classic, which is usually on TV all the time, and it's actually kind of really funny. That opening scene of Scrooged is with Lee Majors, taking down people in the North Pole, which we've always joked about. That's what the movie Fat Man with Mel Gibson is all about, which, by the way, is on Amazon Prime if you want to watch it now. But, he almost mimics a Die Hard style in that opening scene, even though he's got this massive repertoire of action movies. But yes, he comes out with Scrooged. And I don't know what else you can say about Scrooge. I mean, he
just French.
He reinvented the Charles Dickens tale, right? He modernized it, and he also did some pretty cool stuff. Who was the old dead guy, the golfer that built the Ghost of Christmas Past? He was a famous. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. Clearly,
Scott knows it all because Scott is just knocking out of the park with all his comments. So much that he's just remembering it all because that's what Scott does. But we'll keep on going because there's so much in his filmography that we haven't got to.
Yes, so we jump in. Okay, we got a couple of Lethal Weapon 3s and whatever. Fine, we hit into Maverick. He reunites with Mel Gibson teams up with Jodie Foster and James Garner, and to do a reboot or a reimagining of the TV show Maverick, which actually starred James Garner in the title character. This is a movie I saw a fair amount of times as a young guy because I thought it was just kind of a fun, cool little flick. I mean, I remember the fight scene on the train and stuff like that. I haven't seen it in years and years and years. But I remember thinking this is a pretty cool movie. He jumps out of Maverick and he goes into the movie, which I actually thought John had watched before this episode, which is Assassins.
Before we just jump over Maverick, let's just shout out the fact that Maverick still holds up. There's some really
I haven't
good
seen it
in it. We forget that Dr. Octopus, who's Alfred Molina, is so good in this movie. Yeah. He plays the bad guy. You have, all these different, like Art Lafleur just hams it up as just like a poker player. We have Canadian Graham Greene, who plays fantastic as the native is like trying to, with the Russian who's like killing the sport of man and all that stuff that happened. It's fun. It's a fun ride. But shout out to Maverick. It was a good movie back in the day.
I don't think I've seen it.
Well, Sarah asked the question, is Maverick better than The Quick and the Dead? And the answer is yes. Yes.
Well,
you can.
Sarah, are you there just to watch Leo? Because at The Quick and the Dead, if you're just there to watch Leo, then that's pretty much it.
Sharon Stone did not do herself any favors as trying to play against type in a Western in that movie.
Well, she wasn't bad in it. She had the wherewithal. She fought for Leonardo DiCaprio because they didn't want DiCaprio in that movie. She is a very good eye for talent. She's like, this guy's going to be something. And there's a small gladiator who shows up in this movie for no reason. He didn't have to be there.
That's
And
true.
Russell Crowe is great in it. And Sarah Hackman is in it, and he's also great. So, like, there are moments of that film where it works. Sharon Stone is not the best part of the movie, but geez Louise, when DiCaprio goes in there and just starts doing all the stuff he does, it makes it it elevates the movie. But yes, Maverick, it's a close one.
Well, it's a different, right? Because Quick and the Dead tried to be a very serious Western movie, kind of a la, kind of like Unforgiven, a little bit more of a darker Western, whereas Quick and the Dead was more playing into the Western genre of the 1960s TV show. So,
and there's a riverboat in Maverick, so that's all you need to do. there's like way many scenes, and then they finish off on a riverboat playing poker. I was like, it's
right
in a poker tournament where guys are cheating and doing stuff. It's okay. Maverick wins. Sarah,
Assassins. Assassins with Stallone and Antonio Banderas. And this is, I believe, Antonio's first movie after Desperado, which was a huge hit in here because he first kind of got some notoriety with Robert Rodriguez with El Mariachi, which is the first part of this, the Mariachi trilogy, then jumps into Desperado, which again was phenomenal. I mean, that comes out, that's kind of follows the heels of Pulp Fiction, which was kind of redefining film genre in the 90s. And so that they got looped into that because Rodriguez was a very frenetic, stylish director with the way he shot his action scenes. But Banderas then jumps into this movie with Assassins with, like I said, Stallone. It's okay. It's all right.
the meme is the best part of the whole movie. I
think it's bad. Yeah.
I think that Stallone is the reason that movie just does not work, to be very honest with you. I think if you had somebody else with Banderas, I think it would have been okay.
It wastes Julianne Moore. It wastes Julianne Moore.
You're not going to do your Vin Diesel impression now, Rob?
I still, it's like, Antonio, we were assassins. And
that's not from the film, folks.
No, it is from the film. That's new. It is. Like, I'm just gonna just dub that over because that was.
Look at me! I have a gun. I'm an assassin. After Assassin,
my mom will shoot.
That's right. Yeah. Where's Estelle? We jump into Conspiracy Theory, which was Julia Roberts and
Mel Gibson again.
Mel Gibson again. Thank you.
And Patrick Stewart. Sir Patrick Stewart.
Sir Patrick Stewart, Pat Stew, which is an okay movie. Again, it's one of those ones I probably saw once or twice, and that was it. I really had no impetus to kind of go back and rewatch it. Nothing really. This, again, you have to understand now, which is really funny. If you take this poster and you match it up with the Firm poster, right? Tom Cruise's movie, they're very similar. There's a lot of these movies, and it was the Enemy of the State with Gene Hackman and Will Smith. It's the kind of the same poster. They were all kind of these conspiracy weird movies that were kind of coming out at the time of Big Brother watching you and so on. Jumps over to Lethal Weapon 4, which is John's favorite Donner movie, apparently. A movie called Timeline, which I wasn't really familiar with. And then he ends his directing career with 16 Blocks, which I kind of feel like he goes out on a bit of a whimper with this movie. It was okay. The whole premise is tied and true. It's, Bruce Willis has to get this prisoner to the next precinct, and it's 16 blocks away. And there's a whole bunch of people out to kill this guy because I think he's going to turn state's witness, right? Or whatever. It's Mos Def. Yeah,
Mos Def. He's no longer
the other guy that plays a cop all the time.
Yes,
the other guy is.
He's Yassine Bey is how he's like to refer to as Rob or John. Sorry, so he has that. That's a stage name. I think I wanted to bring up quickly, Rob, as we're rounding down. I brought us up to that not only was he a prolific director, but he was a prolific producer. That
was the next thing we wanted to get into.
Yeah, like the fact that he was executive producing lots of different things. He was executive producer on a small movie called The Lost Boys.
I feel like I know that movie.
That movie, John, pull it up. He was executive producer of Lost Boys. He had an eye for good scripts, and if he was not able to do it, he would produce it. He also produced a small little movie that parodied itself called Free Willy. So there was that thing, that little gem that I think we all at one point in our childhood watched, and also make fun of the fact that it's called Free Willy. He was very much a big fan of, clearly from the Omen. He executive produced all of Tales from the Crypt Keeper. So as we discussed, I think Scott made it much, or Gord, or maybe mentioned it too, where that television show Tales from the Crypt Keeper, he was essentially the executive producer with that, and then he ended up executive producing both the.
I remember that being good.
Tales from the Crypt Keeper is awesome. I remember the Schwarzenegger one vividly in my head, and that was like a terrifying, like it scared me as a kid. And it's like, why would this person just, the old man, give up all his money to be like a younger, like stronger body? And he was basically moving to get, like, he was an old man with this giant bicep of Arnold Schwarzenegger. But yeah, and then he produced Tales from the Crypt, underrated Demon Knight. That's right. A freaking good movie. I don't know who anyone, like, Tales from Demon Knight is awesome. And Jada Pinkett Smith is really good in that movie. And Billy Zane, again, good in this movie. Like, this is classic Billy Zane at his as best peak outside of Titanic. He plays a really good character in that, because in the beginning he makes it look like he's the good guy, and William Sadler is the bad guy. And William Sadler is also tremendous in this movie.
Sure. Yeah.
Tales from the Crypt, Bordello of Blood. That's a complete forgetful. And yeah, he was executive producer, him and Oliver Stone, Any Given Sunday. So really, really, like, out of nowhere, never thought that was a thing. And kind of the last two big credits that we talked about before at Goonies is both the original X-Men movie. He was the executive producer for X-Men, the 2000 film. So that was the OG X-Men film. And yep. And then finally, he was executive producer in X-Men Origins Wolverine, which what has done is given us the gift that is Ryan Reynolds. So if anything can happen, he gave us the first 8-minute scene of that movie. Well, I'll fight anyone to say it's probably the best X-Men intro of all the intro movies, where Wolverine and Sabretooth are basically running through various parts of history, fighting people. And then Ryan Reynolds finally given the opportunity to be Deadpool. So that is one of his lasting gifts. Ryan Reynolds. I can go without the Taylor Hitch as our boy Riggins right there as Gambit.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But
you know
yeah,
what though?
you know,
but I think it's important
It was fine.
I think it's important to understand though is that he was a producer on the X-Men movies. They originally, Fox asked him to direct, and he said no. Like, I've done my superhero movie, I'm not doing it again. Get somebody else. They get Bryan Singer. But even though he wasn't attached as a producer per se for the remaining Fox movies, X-Men universe, his wife, Lauren Schuler-Donner, was the helm. She spearheaded as the main producer through their company, the Schuler-Donner Pictures, all of those movies, all of those TV shows. What was the what's that the TV show on Hulu a couple years ago, the mutant one? It's escaping me now. But at any rate, anything that had to do with mutants, like even the New Mutants and everything else that it came out of Fox, he has ties to just through his company, vis-a-vis with his wife as the producer. So that's huge. I mean, he helped bring, there's a lot of arguments that first X-Men movie helped usher in, again, a modern Marvel, movie series, right? I mean, they kind of pushed some boundaries, and that was a really low budget movie shot in Toronto. But it raked in a bunch of cash. They doubled down with X2, but it showed that it had some legs. And without his guidance with his wife and being able to do, as much as people probably deride and kind of have a bit of disdain or a bad taste in the mouth of the Fox X-Men universe, you can't help but deny those first couple of movies were just phenomenal.
The TV show is The Gifted, Rob? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, there was another one though, and it's really bugging me that now I'm gonna have to. It was like Professor X makes an appearance in it. It lasted for just a couple of years.
Is that the show
Mutant X
or
Mutant X?
No.
Yeah, you have it's on this. That's the Audrey Plaza one, right? The Audrey Plaza TV show. God, you got me on it too. But
It's driving me crazy. It was really. It starts with an L. Let's start with an L. Legion.
Legion. Yes, Legion.
Oh,
yeah.
Which I actually watched completion. If you haven't watched Legion, it's actually really good. That last season just blew my effing mind away. It's sad that they, I know the creator of Legion was going to do some Fox properties because it was Noah Holloway who does like awesome stuff, but he wasn't given a chance to because Disney swooped in and bought it. But yeah, he's done some good stuff. Fargo, Legion. He wrote one of the new Alien movies that wasn't going to work out, but or maybe it's going to work out. So yeah.
Yeah, so it goes back to, I just think that we've blown through this guy's career.
No.
But you don't get a lot of these movies without, you don't get a lot of the derivative movies without Richard Donner.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wanted to quickly read this quote. You may or may not know. I know that Stu knows Mark Bernardin. He's a writer. He's written for a bunch of TV series. He's also a co-host of the Fat Man Beyond podcast with Kevin Smith. But he tweeted out something that I thought was pretty interesting. He said, and I quote, "That's not to denigrate Richard Donner's contributions to cinema. I love so many of his flicks, from Superman to Lethal Weapon, and a whole lot in between. But he was a shooter who loved movies, not films, movies. And Hollywood knew he could hit whatever pitch they threw him." I think it's a very important distinction. You have a myriad of directors of different types of tastes and talents and whatnot. You've got your Quentin Tarantinos and your aforementioned Robert Rodriguez, and you have, a whole bunch of these really, Spielberg, George Lucas. You have a lot of these directors, but you also have Richard Donner, who's just up there, but he found the niche market on great, fulfilling popcorn movies without being artsy, and yet made it a work of art without you realizing it. So I think that his contribution to cinema is, and to our upbringing, our childhood, is huge.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that whether it was heartfelt tweets from actors or directors or people that he's worked with, many people can trace their lineage kind of to the movies that he directed. He may not be a Scott, or Spielberg or Tarantino or some of the ones that are highly regarded for a lot of their contributions to cinema. But in terms of the modern blockbuster, this is essentially, he is kind of the godfather to, which is basically now superhero films. That is what everything's about right now. And he is the godfather of this whole world of superhero films. And that's pretty much his contribution in the world, as much as Stan Lee is very much involved with the characters. But the format of these movies, basically Marvel's copied it, and DC still trying to figure out what they're doing. So he'll still be, we're going to continue to see these style of movies till we're bored, but it's going to happen for a while. As long as people pay for them, it's going to be a Richard Donner-esque film for a long, long time.
It's the interesting thing. We've talked about this. Superman is the benchmark for which every other Marvel movie needs to adhere to. That movie came out in 1978. We're, 40 something years since it came out. How do we're 43 years since it came out. How is it possible that a movie that old, when you have 22 Marvel movies, it's still the benchmark? He did, the tagline of that movie was, you will believe a man can fly. He did that. He helped create that technology. He won an Academy Award for his technological advances into cinema. And maybe parts of it doesn't hold up. When you watch it now, you can see that he's flying in front of a movie screen because it's a bit darker in the background, the cityscape. It doesn't pop with that brightness that we're used to. But shit, that scene of him, going through the turns, the revolving door as he switches from Clark Kent to Superman, and he flies up into the against the backdrop of that building as he goes up. It gives chills to anybody watching that because it's just so beautifully shot. And that movie is full of heart. And so, yeah, Stu says it best. I mean, we don't get Marvel movies in the quality that we have them without Richard Donner, without Kevin Feige saying, hey, this is the guy we need to go. Otherwise, we have Captain America by Albert Pyun and The Punisher with Dolph Lundgren, right? If it's not for Kevin Feige saying, no, that's the benchmark we need to hit. We're never going to best it. We need to hit it. We don't get these amazing Marvel movies that are 22 movies deep and now 3 full TV shows in.
Yep. So, we're going to see what happens with the films and see if there's going to be a new formula. I don't see that as something that's going to happen. I would say go back and watch some of his films with.
I was going to say, Stu, what would you recommend? Someone who's listening, what was the one go-to?
I think we all know what the answer is. For holiday season, you watch Scrooged. If you want to go whimsical adventure, you watch Goonies. And if no kids are around, you watch Lethal Weapon. Like these are situational movies. You're not going to just bring out Lethal Weapon with little kids around. It's not something you're going to do. There's some bad words and some things happening in the first film that's not exactly the correct.
But you know what though? That is like I said before, there's 4 movies of quality that you can watch on a weekend and you will not feel like you've wasted your time. You can't say that for the Alien movies, the franchises. You could be a big Aliens fan and be like, want to fight me saying, no, Aliens 3 is great. David Fincher would disagree. You would watch Alien and Aliens, and then you will notice a sharp decline. And then when you get to Alien 4, the Resurrection, you seriously want to start like questioning life choices. There's, you can watch The Godfather 1 and 2, phenomenal movies. There's a quality difference when you get to Godfather 3. You can just tell.
Wait, you just casually throwing The Godfather in here? Get out of here.
Yes, I am.
Shut up. No. You don't get to just trounce and be like, oh, yeah, The Godfather. Whoa. No.
Yes,
no.
I just did. Yeah.
No. You don't get to put the Lethal Weapon 4 movies anywhere near The Godfather. Don't even compare them. So don't even put them in the same conversation.
No, but what I'm saying though is that there's a drop in quality when you get. It's very, very difficult to find movies, a trilogy or a quadrilogy, that are as unequal with the first one. The Lord of the Rings were, but they were all filmed together, so there wasn't like a difference between the years between those movies being shot. So that's what I'm saying is that you have 4 solid movies.
When Gordon's talking about watching this when he was 10, but that's also when you used to walk a quarter mile to school every day, and you had to, you saddle the horses and ride the horse to school. Like, this is a different time period. You can't have kids watch.
That's when your parents said, "Just be home,"
and to be like, "Come home for dinner."
That's when you walked into a coffee shop and bought a pack of smokes from the vending machine. Like, come on, this is not the same time period. It's when toys had guns and we could buy fireworks and just throw stuff at each other for no reason. This is a way different time period. So yeah, I agree with you. Back then you could watch it, but now it's kids can't. So yeah, we can watch Superman 1. You can watch, like, all his offerings are completely different, and that's kind of a Tarantino-esque quality where he does something different each time. He doesn't systemically go back to the same genre over and over. Tarantino goes back to the same, and Donner kind of goes back to the same with Lethal Weapon. But The Omen, Superman, The Goonies, he's done kind of a different movie genre, and like you said, hit out of the park. So there is something about doing different types of movies, and you could say Spielberg doesn't really do that either,
right?
So
yeah, he played outside. Spielberg is great for sci-fi and fantasy and a little bit of thriller with Jaws. Although that was really his in history in his later years. But aside from Jaws, what other real thriller movie did Spielberg ever do?
Yeah, what's his comedy film like?
Right. Whereas Donner hit them all. He had horror, action, comedy, and drama.
Yep. So what I want to do is I want to go into the parallel universe where he directed Three Men and a Baby and Leonard Nimoy directed Lethal Weapon, and I want to watch those back to back and see how he would have done, how he would have utilized the Goot and how he would have maximized Gutenberg and his dramatic chops, because there was a time when he was king of the world, Mr. Steve Gutenberg.
That's right.
Yeah,
John. And now after Stu and I geeking over Richard Donner, is there anything else that would you watch? Something now that you maybe haven't seen that we've talked about that's piqued your interest, or are you like?
Can you at least watch the episode of? Can you put that picture up of Shatner? Can you at least watch that episode for me, John? Like, put that up. And if you haven't watched it, I think it's a perfect example of cinema or of television. Just everything it does. Put up that picture of the great.
I'm guessing what it is, but
Bill Shatner. Do you not know what it is? The black and white one.
That's the one.
Is this it?
Yeah, that's it.
There it is.
What is that thing in the window?
Yeah, it's the Gremlin. Back. What do you expect?
It's 1963, John. As you can tell, maybe special effects might be wonky, but it was also shot in black and white.
Yeah. So that I'm saying, man, like that is the one piece. If you're gonna go away, watch that episode of the
Twilight Zone.
The Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
But yes, if there's a movie you're gonna watch, Sean, do you have one?
Yeah, I think I've never seen the Donner cut of Superman 2, so that's something. And that's the Superman I remember the most, where he fights the
three Kryptonians.
Kryptonians, yeah. So I remember that movie the most, so I should probably watch that. And I definitely recommend people dust off Lethal Weapon 4 and give it another chance.
I'll tell you what, John, you won't be disappointed in Superman 2 with Donner cut. You want to know why? Here's something that you don't get to see in it. He doesn't use his shield as a cellophane trap on Non, who then falls into the pits of the fortress. So there's none of that.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna probably go back and watch the Goonies now again, because that movie, and those of you who also played the video game, has that tune from Cyndi Lauper just ingrained in your brain. So I also have that song stuck in my brain too, because I had one of those cartridges with like 132 games, and one of them was the Goonies, and I used to play that game all the damn time. And I can just remember that Cyndi Lauper song being played back and forth as I run through the mansion trying to get keys. So it's not only the movie you should try, but play that Goonies video game. It's not great, but the music is banging. That's it.
Cool. Well, I guess we're coming to the end of our show there. So I want to thank everybody. And first of all, thanks to Stu for showing up today. And big thanks to John, because I know, John, this is like, I don't know, man. I guess you guys can do this. So
I've got more notes on Lethal Weapon 4. So if you guys want to do a Lethal Weapon 4 rewatch, I'm all about it. Shout outs to Louis Tan's father is in the movie as well. I think he's the Chinese restaurant worker that they chased down.
I'm looking forward to do the Jet Li retrospective, John, because we're gonna do a whole bunch of Jet Li movies when that happens, because
Jet Li's first introduction to the North American audience playing this crazy powerful villain. So I don't know if it was Donner's choice to make him look so invincible that basically he was only defeated via kind of like a fluke of circumstances, because it looked like our duo was going to lose to him hands down. So I think that was really cool and very cool the way he shot him and stuff like that. So definitely, Lethal Weapon 4 dusted off. And I can definitely do a Jet Li retrospective, and we can go back to the Master.
Let's hope he lives for a lot longer. I hope he doesn't do anything, but we'll be prepared, just like we'll hack already.
Look at people are asking for homework. They want to know what homework we're going to give them, John. This is hilarious. My wife's a teacher, but they're asking for homework for next week. Do you want to do Lethal Weapon 4, John?
We don't have to do Lethal Weapon 4. I think we should. And we're definitely not doing Lewis just shouted out the one.
That's not happening.
I do own it on DVD, but I'm not watching that thing ever again.
If you're gonna do a Jet Li movie, that's a great question. What's the best Jet Li movie to do for next week? If you're gonna do a Jet Li movie, what's the one? What's the Jet Li movie to watch? Are we talking about a lot of Ip Man movies? Or we're going?
Hong Kong cinema. I can definitely pick my favorite out of Hong Kong cinema, but I feel like you would do Romeo Must Die, just because I'm sure everybody saw that back in the day in the theaters. So you look, Gordon's reading my mind. Romeo Must Die.
You wouldn't do like Hero or Fearless or any of the Expendable movies. Like, he's in a bunch of the Expendable movies.
That's true.
Unleashed is fantastic.
He's in the
Danny
Mummy.
the Dog.
He's Fist of Legend. Like, there's so many like really good like Jet Li movies that actually doing stuff, and you're gonna, like there's a million Jet Li like actual fighting movies, and you're gonna
if I had my Laserdisc here, I've moved my Laserdisc because it was a giant box and it was really in the way. I do own on Laserdisc. My two all-time favorite Jet Li movies are Bodyguard from Beijing, starring Christy Chung and Jet Li, and High Risk, which is like a Die Hard knockoff. They're pretty funny movies.
And you haven't even mentioned Once Upon a Time in China. Like, there's like 3 of them. Pick any one you
Wong
want.
Fei Hung classics. Yep, you could definitely go into that. So there's a lot of stuff we could do. Rob, I don't know if you have anything on tap that you want to do next week. There's a bunch of other
we'll
movies.
figure it out in the next couple of days, and we'll post it up on our social media. We got to find something that's accessible.
I think Rob is having some difficulties with Jet Li films. So clearly we found his gap, because Rob is talking about maybe Black Mask. He's like, I remember that movie with Jet Li, Black Mask.
No. I was like, Cradle to the Grave?
Or Kiss of the Dragon with Bridget Fonda.
You cannot
remember that movie?
Talk about Cradle to the Grave.
Kiss of the Dragon.
Kiss of the Dragon with Bridget Fonda?
Yep.
Kiss of the Dragon. I'll give you Kiss of the Dragon.
Unleashed with Bob Hoskins. Superman.
We have to find a movie that's accessible on the streaming service for people to watch. So we'll
War
have to
with Jason Statham. Remember that movie? That gem with
The only reason I really enjoyed Danny the Dog is because Massive Attack did the soundtrack for that, and that's why I got into that movie, because I was like, oh, Massive Attack, but
yeah, he was in the fourth Mummy. Right. He played an Asian mummy, and then they also switched because Rachel Weisz didn't want to do the Mummy anymore, so they brought in They brought in Marabella to be the new. I was like, this is off the rails when they bring a new actress to come in. It all fell down the hill once The Rock showed up in the Mummy. You could never recover from Scorpion.
I'm not gonna lie, John. We were talking about White Man Can't Jump a few weeks ago. Do you remember that?
Do we want to sports again?
Oh no, Sparks, no, never again. That was. I will speak for everyone in the chat. No, never.
We'll figure it out and we'll put it on our social media. Unless it's a stupid
sport. At least it's a stupid sports movie or for fun. Don't do a serious one again. Like,
I do Keanu Reeves The Replacements, but again, like Rob said, it has to be accessible. A lot of these movies are not, like even Lethal Weapon 4. I had to dig up my DVD, so it would be too hard to ask everybody to watch some of these movies.
Yeah. All right.
Do we have to do sports?
Yeah. So
I think Sarah may come over and punch you both in the face if you do sports again. So you got to be careful, and she can
take over. I believe Rob is on break for 2 weeks from now. So we're probably going to do Mean Girls. So I think Sarah's on deck for that. I don't know who else wants in on Mean Girls action, but I think that's going to be a ton of fun.
Just for those who do want to watch
the weapon. I think that's Scott. Scott's in. So Scott is the best for that. Yes.
For those who do want to watch Lethal Weapon 4, though, I will say it's on Crave. If for those who were kind of like, after hearing John talk about it, in Canada, you can watch it on Crave right now. But we'll figure out what we're going to watch, and we'll post it online.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, Thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Stu, for joining us. Thank you, Rob,
thanks for having me.
For taking weight of most of us, summarizing the entire career of Richard Donner.
Stu and I.
Yeah. You guys did a wicked job.
John,
and
do some stuff in there. John, I was there. That's fine.
I threw in pictures and I threw in Lethal Weapon 4, which I knew I had to get in there. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. If you are not already following us on the Facebook, YouTube, and all that kind of stuff, Twitch. Shout out to Rob not being fetch. Twitch, we are like 29 followers away from becoming affiliate. I don't know what that means, but if anyone is on Twitch, definitely please give us a follow. And thank you, everyone, again for joining us. I think that's it. You can follow Rob on The Real 98 Degrees. He'll be mounting a comeback tour. Stu hosts our Heroes World podcast every Sunday, so we look forward to the newest episode of that being posted.
Last episode of Loki is coming up. We're gonna see if our two combatants today are gonna melt and be on board, or just completely just rage out. So I'm super excited to see how the panelists do on Sunday. Whether this can be praise or just taking their toys and going home. So I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll probably rank it in our Marvel TV show. So definitely join us for that.
There's
And,
only 3 to rank.
Yeah, but I feel like it's important to know which one everyone feels is the top. We'll see how it goes. Rob, any closing comments? Where can they catch your latest hit single?
Shut up, John. You find
wait. Can you name one song from 90 Degrees, Rob?
Can I what? Sorry.
Can you name a song from 90 Degrees?
He wrote them all.
No, I can't actually.
Can you
get out of town?
Really? You
O-Town? Did you say O-Town?
I do cherish
part
you.
Of O-Town.
There's the Invisible Man. Those are all songs that John had on his
Invisible Man.
Player. That on his mini disc player. John had on MD player.
I was gonna say that I 100% have them on my mini disc player. We could do a filler episode of random old shit,
old tech
around, but I think that'd be too embarrassing.
All right, I'm out.
Anyways, we're gonna go. Thank you very much.